66 million years ago, the Earth was a vibrant and bustling planet. Towering dinosaurs roamed vast continents, lush forests teemed with life, and the skies were alive with pterosaurs and the early ancestors of modern birds. It was a world where the dinosaurs were the undisputed rulers, thriving in ecosystems that had evolved over millions of years. But in the blink of an eye, on a cosmic timescale, this dominion came to an end. A single event wiped out 3/4 of all life on Earth, marking the close of the Cretaceous period and the end of the Mesozoic era. On what seemed like an ordinary day, life was about to face a cataclysmic disaster. To truly grasp the magnitude of this event, we need to go back in time and walk through the final hours of the dinosaurs. This is the story of their last day. At the end of the Cretaceous period, approximately 66 million years ago, Earth was a planet in flux. The supercontinent Pangaea, which had once unified much of the world's landmass, had broken apart millions of years earlier. The tectonic plates continued their slow but relentless movement, shaping the continents into forms that were beginning to resemble the modern world. North and South America were now fully separated by a growing oceanic expanse, while Europe and Asia, though distinct, were still developing their recognizable outlines. Africa, Australia, and Greenland had settled into shapes remarkably similar to those we know today, though their positions on the globe were slightly different. These shifting landmasses dramatically influenced Earth's climate and ecosystems. Massive volcanic activity accompanied the tectonic changes, releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and contributing to a world that, while cooler than in earlier periods of the Mesozoic era, was still significantly warmer than it is today. The poles saw the formation of ice caps, but they were small compared to their modern counterparts. Most of the planet remained a lush tropical paradise, with dense vegetation thriving in the warm, humid conditions. The land was blanketed by vibrant forests dominated by conifers and ginkgo trees, remnants of ancient flora that had existed for hundreds of millions of years. However, the end of the Cretaceous also saw the rise of a transformative group of plants, flowering plants or angiosperms. These plants not only added a new dimension to the landscape with their colorful blooms, but also revolutionized ecosystems by attracting pollinators like bees and butterflies. The resulting fruits and seeds became critical food sources for many animal species, creating intricate interdependencies between plants and animals. The ecosystems of this era were teeming with life. Dinosaurs, the undisputed rulers of the planet, were at their evolutionary zenith. Massive sauropods like Alamosaurus, some of the largest creatures to ever walk the Earth, roamed the plains in search of the vast amounts of vegetation they required to sustain their enormous bodies. These gentle giants coexisted with a plethora of other herbivores, each adapted to exploit different ecological niches. At the top of the food chain were the fearsome carnivores. The legendary Tyrannosaurus rex patrolled the forests of North America, its massive jaws capable of crushing bone, while the equally imposing Tarbosaurus ruled over the lands of what is now Asia. These apex predators were not just symbols of brute strength, but also highly specialized hunters, equipped with keen senses and formidable weapons that allowed them to dominate their environments. Amidst this dynamic and competitive world, smaller creatures were quietly carving out their place in history. Early mammals no larger than modern rodents scurried through the underbrush, avoiding the watchful eyes of predators. These tiny survivors were remarkably adaptable, able to feed on a variety of foods and find shelter in burrows and trees. Their versatility would prove to be their greatest asset in the face of the catastrophic events to come. Insects, too, were undergoing significant evolutionary advancements. The arrival of flowering plants spurred the diversification of pollinators like bees and butterflies, which played a crucial role in shaping ecosystems. Birds, descendants of small theropod dinosaurs, had begun to spread their wings, taking to the skies and expanding their habitats. The interconnectedness of these ecosystems was a marvel of evolutionary innovation. Each species, from the towering sauropods to the tiniest insects, played a role in maintaining the balance of life, yet despite their apparent stability, these ecosystems were about to be tested in ways they could not withstand. As the continents drifted and the climate evolved, Earth seemed poised for another era of dominance by the dinosaurs. But unbeknownst to the inhabitants of this world, a cosmic force was hurtling toward them, an asteroid that would shatter this delicate balance and usher in a new chapter in the history of life on Earth. The age of the dinosaurs was at its peak, but it was also nearing its end. It was a day like any other, 5 hours before disaster struck. The planet was alive with the sounds of chirping insects, rustling leaves, and the distant calls of dinosaurs. On the Yucatan Peninsula, a herd of Alamosaurus, the gentle titans of the dinosaur world, grazed peacefully. These behemoths, among the largest creatures to ever walk the earth, stood as tall as a 4-story building and weighed up to 38 tons. Despite their immense size, their existence was a constant struggle for sustenance. Each Alamosaurus needed nearly a ton of vegetation daily to sustain its massive frame. Their nomadic lifestyle took them on long migrations across the land, moving from one lush forest to another in search of fresh greenery. On this particular day, the herd had come across a dense patch of cycads and ferns, a favorite treat. Their long necks stretched high into the treetops, stripping leaves with powerful jaws, while younger members of the herd foraged closer to the ground. For these herbivorous giants, the day was no different from any other, a quiet routine of grazing and moving as a group for protection. Thousands of kilometers away, in the lands that would one day become Mongolia, a very different scene was unfolding. A Tarbosaurus, one of the apex predators of its time, was on the hunt. This fearsome predator measured nearly 14 meters from nose to tail, its body a perfect blend of power and speed. With a skull full of sharp serrated teeth and claws capable of tearing flesh, the Tarbosaurus was a formidable force. Stalking the dense floodplains, the Tarbosaurus moved with surprising stealth for its size. It scanned its surroundings, nostrils flaring as it caught the scent of a potential meal. Smaller dinosaurs and mammals frequented this area, drawn by the abundance of water and vegetation. The Tarbosaurus knew that patience and precision were its greatest tools. Every movement was calculated, every step deliberate, as it closed the distance between itself and its prey. Meanwhile, in North America, a different drama was playing out. Deep in the forests near what would one day be the Rocky Mountains, an Ankylosaurus mother led her 4 hatchlings through the underbrush. The Ankylosaurus was a creature built for defense, its body encased in thick bony armor that could repel even the most determined predator. Its clubbed tail, a powerful weapon, swung gently as the mother moved, ready to lash out at any threat. The hatchlings, still small and vulnerable, stayed close to their mother's side, their tiny armored bodies offering only limited protection. For the young, survival depended entirely on the mother's vigilance and strength. As they moved deeper into the forest, the family found a clearing rich with low-growing plants. The mother began to graze, her sharp beak tearing through vegetation, while the hatchlings mimicked her actions, learning the skills they would need to survive. Across the globe, life carried on in its myriad forms, from the dense forests of North America to the floodplains of Asia and the tropical expanses of the Yucatan Peninsula. Ecosystems thrived. Each creature, from the smallest insect to the mightiest dinosaur, was locked in the eternal cycle of life, feeding, growing, reproducing, and surviving. But far above the Earth, a cosmic visitor was hurtling toward the planet at unimaginable speed. A massive asteroid, measuring 10 kilometers across, traveled through the vacuum of space, its surface pockmarked with craters from countless collisions over billions of years. As it drew closer to Earth, its trajectory was unrelenting, pulled by the planet's gravitational force. This celestial intruder had no warning to give, no signs of its impending doom. On the ground, animals continued their daily routines, oblivious to the fiery spectacle that was about to light up their skies. The Alamosaurus herd moved deeper into the forest, the Tarbosaurus crept ever closer to its prey, and the Ankylosaurus family grazed peacefully in the clearing. The day seemed tranquil, a perfect snapshot of life at the peak of the Cretaceous period. Yet, in just 5 hours, this serene world would be shattered. The asteroid's collision would unleash an unimaginable chain of events, plunging the Earth into darkness and forever altering the course of life on the planet. These final hours of calm were the last moments of the age of dinosaurs, a fleeting peace before the storm. 2 hours before the impact, an enormous asteroid began its final descent toward Earth. This colossal space rock, stretching about 10 kilometers in diameter, was no ordinary celestial object. It was a remnant of the solar system's chaotic formation, forged billions of years ago in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Over millennia, it had been jostled and pulled by the gravitational forces of planets, finally breaking free from its orbit and hurtling toward an unknowing Earth. The asteroid, weighing trillions of tons, moved at a speed that defied comprehension, 20 kilometers per second. This velocity, nearly 72,000 kilometers per hour, made it a deadly projectile, carrying enough energy to reshape the planet. As it entered Earth's gravitational pull, the rock's fate was sealed. Its trajectory was locked and its target was the Yucatan Peninsula. High above the planet, the asteroid began interacting with the upper layers of the atmosphere. The friction generated by its incredible speed caused its surface to heat to temperatures of tens of thousands of degrees Celsius. The rock glowed like a miniature sun, its fiery brilliance outshining the actual sun in the sky. From the ground, it appeared as a blinding light streaking across the heavens, leaving a blazing trail of fire and smoke in its wake. On the surface, animals reacted with confusion and fear. The dazzling brightness of the fireball disrupted their routines, and instinct drove them to flee. Herds of dinosaurs, startled by the searing light, began to stampede. Massive Alamosaurus swayed their colossal frames, retreating deeper into the forest. Predators like Tarbosaurus paused their hunts, momentarily distracted by the strange phenomenon in the sky. Even the smallest creatures, mammals scurrying in the underbrush and insects flitting through the air, sensed that something was amiss. As the asteroid plummeted closer, its descent had an immediate effect on the environment. The intense heat radiating from its passage ignited wildfires in its path. Dry vegetation caught fire instantly, and within moments flames spread across vast stretches of land. Towering trees became roaring infernos, and thick plumes of smoke billowed into the sky, creating a curtain of darkness that would soon envelop the planet. The fires were not limited to the asteroid's immediate trajectory. The energy released by its entry sent shock waves through the atmosphere, sparking blazes hundreds of kilometers away from its path. Forests that had stood for millions of years, housing intricate ecosystems, were reduced to ashes within minutes. In the oceans, waves began to ripple and churn as the planet's equilibrium shifted. Marine creatures accustomed to the rhythmic ebb and flow of tides now experienced chaos as shock waves rippled through the water. Schools of fish darted in all directions, and even the largest sea creatures, the ancient ancestors of modern whales and sharks, felt the looming disturbance. The asteroid's approach was not just a physical event, it was an atmospheric spectacle of destruction. As it burned through the atmosphere, bits of its outer layers began to disintegrate, creating smaller fragments that trailed behind the main body. These fragments, though minuscule compared to the asteroid itself, were still massive rocks, each capable of devastating impacts. They began to rain down on the planet, creating small explosions upon impact, adding to the growing chaos. The ground beneath the approaching asteroid began to tremble. The gravitational pull of the enormous rock was so strong that it subtly distorted the Earth's crust as it neared. Animals that had sought refuge underground began to emerge, disturbed by the rumblings. Birds, sensing danger, took to the skies in flocks, only to be disoriented by the fiery light and the thickening smoke that clouded. As the asteroid streaked ever closer, the time for action had run out. Within 2 hours, the Earth would experience an impact so catastrophic that it would alter the course of its history forever. The asteroid, now a roaring incandescent fireball, was moments away from unleashing a chain reaction of destruction that would leave no corner of the planet untouched. The age of dinosaurs, which had lasted over 160 million years, was about to come to a sudden, violent end. 10 minutes before the collision, the asteroid loomed over the Gulf of Mexico, an unrelenting force of cosmic devastation hurtling toward Earth. Its trajectory was locked, aimed squarely at what is now the Yucatan Peninsula. From the surface, the asteroid appeared as a blinding fireball streaking across the sky, accompanied by deafening sonic booms as it ripped through the atmosphere. Creatures on the ground and in the oceans could only watch in confusion and terror as the celestial intruder approached its inevitable target. When the asteroid struck, it unleashed an energy release unparalleled in Earth's history, equivalent to 10 billion Hiroshima atomic bombs detonating simultaneously. The initial impact vaporized the asteroid instantly, along with everything in the surrounding area. The immense force liquefied the ground beneath it, carving out a massive crater nearly 180 kilometers in diameter and 20 kilometers deep. Today, this scar, known as the Chicxulub crater, remains buried beneath layers of sediment, a silent testament to the violence of that day. The impact triggered destruction on a scale that defies comprehension. Shockwaves radiated outward from the impact site at supersonic speeds, flattening everything in their path for hundreds of kilometers. Entire forests were reduced to splinters in seconds, and the shockwaves were so powerful that they created seismic activity, equivalent to earthquakes measuring over 11 on the Richter scale. The ground trembled violently, with fault lines cracking open and entire landmasses shifting under the immense strain. The heat generated by the collision was equally catastrophic. Temperatures at the impact site soared to tens of thousands of degrees Celsius, hotter than the surface of the sun. This intense heat vaporized everything in the immediate vicinity, from soil and rock to the towering trees and massive dinosaurs that had once thrived there. Even creatures hundreds of kilometers away were not spared. The Alamosaurus herd grazing near the Yucatan Peninsula was obliterated in an instant, their massive bodies reduced to ash in the searing heat. The destruction did not stop at the surface. The impact unleashed a plume of superheated material that blasted into the atmosphere, carrying billions of tons of rock, dust, and vaporized minerals. Some of this debris was ejected into space, but the majority rained back down onto the planet, creating a fiery deluge of molten rock and debris that ignited fires across continents. The sky, once a vibrant blue, turned into a canvas of orange and red as the atmosphere filled with burning fragments. The oceans, too, were not immune to the devastation. The force of the impact displaced trillions of tons of water, creating tsunamis that dwarfed anything experienced in modern history. Waves hundreds of meters high surged outward from the Gulf of Mexico, racing across oceans and inundating coastlines thousands of kilometers away. These tsunamis swept away everything in their path: dinosaurs, vegetation, and even sediment layers, reshaping coastal landscapes in an instant. Within minutes, the air itself became lethal. The vaporized rock and debris from the impact mixed with the atmosphere, creating a toxic cocktail of gases. Sulfur compounds released from the Earth's crust formed acid rain which began to fall within hours, poisoning water sources and soil across the globe. Animals that survived the initial shock waves and heat found themselves choking on noxious air or succumbing to the corrosive rain. The immediate aftermath of the impact was an apocalyptic scene. The landscape near the crater was unrecognizable, transformed into a wasteland of molten rock and scorched earth. Fires burned uncontrollably, stretching as far as the eye could see. The once thriving forests were gone, replaced by a blackened expanse of ash and smoldering debris. Animals that had been fortunate enough to escape the initial blast now faced a new challenge, finding food and shelter in a world that had been irreparably changed. Even as the fires raged and the oceans churned, the true scope of the disaster was only beginning to unfold. The impact set off a chain reaction of events that would ripple across the entire planet, plunging it into darkness and triggering the mass extinction of 75% of all life. For the dinosaurs, whose dominance had lasted over 160 million years, this moment marked the beginning of the end. The age of the dinosaurs was over, and the world would never be the same again. The collision of the asteroid with Earth was only the beginning of the devastation. The energy released in the impact triggered a cascade of catastrophic events that spread destruction across the globe. The first and most immediate effect was a series of massive earthquakes, with magnitudes exceeding 11 on the Richter scale, far beyond anything recorded in modern history. These seismic waves rippled outward from the impact site, shaking the planet to its core. The ground trembled violently, causing fault lines to rupture and landslides to cascade down mountainsides. Massive fissures opened in the Earth's crust, swallowing forests and altering landscapes in mere moments. Near the impact site, the tremors were so intense that entire regions crumbled, their terrain permanently reshaped. Even thousands of kilometers away, the ground shook with terrifying intensity, toppling trees and displacing animals. In the oceans, the seismic activity displaced billions of tons of water, generating colossal tsunamis that radiated outward from the Gulf of Mexico. These waves, some exceeding 100 meters in height, swept across coastlines, obliterating everything in their path. In the Atlantic Ocean, the force of the tsunamis reached as far as Europe and Africa, while in the Pacific the waves surged across to Asia and Australia. Entire marine ecosystems were disrupted as the massive waves churned the seafloor, scattering sediment and uprooting coral reefs. As the seismic waves subsided, the aftermath of the impact began to manifest in the atmosphere. The collision had ejected billions of tons of debris, pulverized rock, superheated ash, and vaporized minerals high into the air. This material formed an enormous plume that rose into the stratosphere where it spread across the globe. Within hours, the skies darkened as this thick cloud blocked sunlight from reaching the Earth's surface. The sudden loss of sunlight plunged the planet into an eerie twilight. Day turned to night, and temperatures began to drop rapidly. Plants, deprived of the sunlight needed for photosynthesis, started to wither. The dense cloud of debris acted as a thermal blanket, trapping heat in some areas while allowing icy temperatures to dominate in others. This imbalance caused weather patterns to become erratic, with sudden storms and violent winds sweeping across the continents. Meanwhile, the fires ignited by the impact continued to spread. The heat from the collision had set vast swaths of vegetation ablaze, and the fires were now consuming entire forests, feeding on the abundant oxygen in the atmosphere. Thick plumes of smoke joined the debris in the sky, further blocking sunlight and adding to the choking haze that enveloped the planet. The burning vegetation released vast amounts of carbon dioxide, methane, and other greenhouse gases, creating a toxic cocktail in the air. Even animals far from the impact zone were not safe from the aftermath. In North America, a Pachycephalosaurus, a sturdy, dome-headed dinosaur, foraged near a lagoon, blissfully unaware of the catastrophe unfolding on the other side of the planet. For a time it seemed insulated from the destruction, continuing its routine of searching for seeds, fruits, and small amphibians. But the peace was short-lived. The fires, spreading relentlessly across continents, soon reached the Pachycephalosaurus's habitat. Flames consumed the surrounding forests, forcing the dinosaur to flee in search of safety. The once lush lagoon became a desolate wasteland as smoke and ash choked the air. Water sources became contaminated with debris, and the air grew heavy with toxins. The Pachycephalosaurus survived the initial destruction, but could not escape the suffocating atmosphere or find enough food in the barren landscape. Eventually, like so many other species, it succumbed to the environmental collapse. The immediate aftermath of the asteroid's collision was a scene of unparalleled chaos and destruction. The earthquakes, tsunamis, and fires combined to create a world that was unrecognizable from what it had been just hours earlier. Entire ecosystems were obliterated, and the interconnected web of life began to unravel. But the worst was yet to come. The debris cloud that darkened the skies would remain for months, plunging the Earth into a prolonged period of darkness and cold. The fires would continue to burn, releasing more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. The animals that survived the initial catastrophe would face starvation, freezing temperatures, and poisoned environments. The extinction event had only just begun. In the days following the asteroid's impact, the Earth transformed into a planet cloaked in shadow. The colossal explosion had ejected billions of tons of pulverized rock, soot, ash, and vaporized minerals into the atmosphere. This material, now suspended high in the stratosphere, formed an impenetrable veil around the globe. Sunlight, the lifeblood of the planet's ecosystems, could no longer reach the surface. For all intents and purposes, Earth was plunged into a global, impact winter. The absence of sunlight had a profound and immediate effect on the planet's climate. Temperatures plummeted by nearly 30 degrees Celsius, creating conditions that no ecosystem was prepared to endure. What had once been lush, tropical environments teeming with life were now cold, barren wastelands. The drop in temperature was so severe that even regions close to the equator experienced freezing conditions. Without sunlight, photosynthesis, the process by which plants convert light into energy, came to a halt. The dense forests that had once dominated the continents withered and died. Leaves turned brittle and fell to the ground, while trunks and branches became lifeless husks. Grasslands disappeared, and even the hardiest of plants, such as ferns and conifers, struggled to survive. The air, heavy with ash and soot, carried an acrid smell of decay and burning. The death of plant life triggered a catastrophic chain reaction throughout the food chain. Herbivorous dinosaurs, reliant on an abundant supply of vegetation, faced starvation. Massive sauropods like Alamosaurus, which required tons of plant matter daily, were among the first to succumb. As their populations dwindled, carnivorous dinosaurs that depended on them for food also began to starve. Apex predators like Tyrannosaurus rex and Tarbosaurus, once the rulers of their ecosystems, now found themselves struggling to survive in an increasingly desolate world. The situation was no better in the oceans. The asteroid's impact had caused massive tsunamis that swept across coastlines, displacing trillions of tons of sediment into the water. This influx of debris clouded the oceans, blocking sunlight from reaching the aquatic plants and plankton that formed the base of the marine food chain. Coral reefs, which had thrived for millions of years, began to die off as their symbiotic algae could no longer photosynthesize. The oceanic die-off extended to larger marine creatures. Fish, dependent on plankton for sustenance, faced dwindling food supplies while predators like ancient sharks and marine reptiles found themselves without prey. Entire underwater ecosystems collapsed as the effects of the impact rippled through the seas. As if the lack of sunlight and plummeting temperatures weren't enough, the planet faced another deadly consequence: acid rain. The asteroid's impact had vaporized sulfur-rich rocks, releasing enormous quantities of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. This gas reacted with water vapor, forming sulfuric acid, which then fell back to Earth as acidic precipitation. The acid rain poisoned soils, rendering them incapable of supporting plant life even if sunlight had returned. Water sources, rivers, lakes, and even the oceans became contaminated, making survival even more challenging for the animals that remained. The acidic water corroded shells and exoskeletons of marine organisms, further accelerating the collapse of aquatic ecosystems. The impact winter and its cascading effects created an environment that was hostile to nearly all forms of life. Mammals and smaller creatures that had sought refuge underground or in burrows fared slightly better, as their small size and adaptable diets allowed them to subsist on limited resources. However, even these survivors faced incredible challenges as the planet's ecosystems continued to collapse. The once vibrant Earth had become a shadow of its former self. The skies were dark, the air was filled with ash and toxins, and the surface was barren and cold. The dinosaurs, which had ruled the planet for 160 million years, were in their final days. The age of reptiles was over, and a long harsh winter had begun. But in the darkness, there was a faint glimmer of resilience. Life, though diminished and fragile, would find a way to endure. The seeds of recovery were hidden in the ashes of destruction, waiting for the moment when the sunlight would finally return to nurture a new chapter in Earth's history. In the months and years following the asteroid's impact, life on Earth entered a period of unparalleled crisis. The cataclysmic events that followed, the impact winter, acid rain, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions, created an environment so hostile that the majority of species could not endure. The dinosaurs, rulers of the Earth for over 160 million years, were among the hardest hit. Their dominance, which had shaped ecosystems for millennia, came to an abrupt and tragic end. The very traits that had made dinosaurs so successful in their prime, massive size, specialized diets, and ecological dominance, now became liabilities. The sudden disappearance of vegetation, combined with the collapse of the food chain, left herbivorous dinosaurs like Alamosaurus, Triceratops, and Ankylosaurus with nothing to eat. Starvation quickly decimated these populations, and their absence rippled through the ecosystem. Carnivorous dinosaurs like Tyrannosaurus rex, Tarbosaurus, and smaller theropods found themselves without prey. Though some scavenged the remains of the dead, the scarcity of food forced these predators to turn on one another in a desperate bid for survival. Fights over dwindling resources became common, and even the fiercest of the carnivores fell victim to starvation and exhaustion. The dinosaurs were not only battling hunger, they also faced a barrage of environmental challenges. The cold, dark conditions brought on by the impact winter proved particularly deadly. Dinosaurs, many of which were ectothermic or partially reliant on external heat sources, struggled to regulate their body temperatures in the frigid post-impact world. Even those that could withstand temporary drops in temperature were eventually overwhelmed by the relentless cold. Disease added another layer of tragedy to their extinction. The decaying bodies of plants and animals created breeding grounds for bacteria and parasites, which spread rapidly in the weakened populations. Dinosaurs, already starving and vulnerable, were unable to mount defenses against these new threats. While most dinosaurs faced extinction, it is possible that some smaller species survived for a time. Fossil evidence suggests that a few bird-like theropods, the ancestors of modern birds, might have endured the initial impact in its immediate aftermath. Their smaller size and ability to scavenge or exploit alternative food sources gave them a brief advantage. However, as the harsh conditions persisted, even these resilient creatures eventually disappeared in most regions. In stark contrast to the plight of the dinosaurs, mammals displayed remarkable adaptability. Their small size and behavioral flexibility became critical survival tools. Many mammals had evolved to live in burrows or sheltered environments, which provided protection from the initial heat and shockwaves of the impact. These underground refuges also shielded them from the prolonged cold and darkness that followed. Mammals' diverse diets further increased their chances of survival. Unlike dinosaurs, which often relied on specific types of plants or prey, Many mammals were opportunistic feeders. They could subsist on seeds, roots, insects, and even carrion, resources that were still available in the devastated landscape. Insects and fungi also thrived in the post-impact environment, playing an essential role in the fragile ecosystem. As decomposers, fungi broke down the remains of plants and animals, recycling nutrients back into the soil. Insects, particularly scavengers like beetles and ants, fed on the decaying organic matter, helping to sustain the food web. These small but crucial organisms contributed to the eventual recovery of life on Earth. The extinction of the dinosaurs marked a profound turning point in the history of life. Their disappearance cleared the way for other species to rise and fill the ecological niches they left behind. Mammals, once small and relatively inconspicuous, began to diversify and expand. Over time, they evolved into the dominant forms of life on land, taking on roles previously occupied by dinosaurs. The end of the dinosaurs was not just the close of an era, it was the beginning of a new chapter. The resilience of life, even in the face of unimaginable destruction, set the stage for the emergence of new ecosystems and new rulers of the planet. The tragedy of the dinosaurs' extinction serves as a reminder of the delicate balance of life and the profound impact that external forces can have on Earth's history. Decades after the catastrophic asteroid impact, the Earth began to emerge from the darkness that had engulfed it. The dense clouds of dust, ash and soot that had blocked sunlight for so long gradually settled, allowing rays of light to pierce through the gloom. With sunlight came warmth and the possibility of renewal. Slowly but surely, life began the arduous process of recovery, heralding the dawn of a new era. The first signs of life's resurgence were seen in the plant kingdom. Ferns and horsetails, ancient plants that had survived multiple mass extinctions in Earth's history, were among the first to reclaim the barren landscape. These plants, well adapted to low light and nutrient-poor soils, colonized the desolate terrain, creating the foundation for more complex ecosystems. Their rapid growth helped stabilize the soil, reducing erosion caused by the previous cataclysmic events. As conditions improved, flowering plants or angiosperms began to reappear. These plants, which had only recently risen to prominence in the Cretaceous period, quickly diversified, taking advantage of the newly opened ecological niches. Grasses also began to spread, laying the groundwork for vast grasslands that would dominate many regions in the future. These grasses were not just vital for the recovery of plant life but also set the stage for the evolution of grazing mammals. In the absence of dinosaurs, mammals began to thrive and diversify. Freed from the predation and competition of the massive reptiles that had once dominated the planet, mammals expanded into niches that had been previously inaccessible. Their small, adaptable forms allowed them to exploit a wide range of resources. In the forests, early primates climbed trees, feeding on fruit and insects. In open plains, herbivorous mammals began to graze on the flourishing grasses, evolving into larger and more specialized forms. The mammalian success story was driven by a combination of adaptability and innovation. Mammals developed more efficient metabolic systems and diverse reproductive strategies, allowing them to thrive in the varied environments that emerged during the recovery period. Some evolved into burrowers, others became climbers, and still others adapted to aquatic lifestyles. This incredible diversity set the stage for mammals to become the dominant vertebrates on land. Birds, the descendants of small theropod dinosaurs, were another group that capitalized on the post-impact world. Their ability to fly gave them unique advantages, allowing them to travel vast distances in search of food and shelter. Birds quickly diversified, occupying ecological roles once filled by pterosaurs and small dinosaurs. Their songs began to fill the skies that had been silent for so long, a poignant reminder of life's resilience. The extinction of the dinosaurs marked a definitive end to the Mesozoic era, a time dominated by reptiles, and the beginning of the Cenozoic era, known as the Age of Mammals. The transition was not immediate, but over millions of years mammals rose to prominence, shaping the ecosystems of the Earth in entirely new ways. The recovery was not limited to land. In the oceans, marine life also began to rebound. Coral reefs, which had been devastated by the influx of debris and the lack of sunlight, slowly regenerated. Plankton, the foundation of the marine food web, began to flourish again as sunlight returned, supporting the recovery of fish and other marine creatures. Mammals that ventured into the oceans, such as the ancestors of whales and seals, would eventually become dominant players in these environments as well. This era of renewal was not without challenges. The planet's ecosystems were fundamentally different from what they had been before the asteroid impact. The Extinction event had acted as a reset button, erasing many species and reshaping the evolutionary paths of those that survived. Yet this also created opportunities for new forms of life to emerge and evolve. The recovery of life after the asteroid impact is a testament to the resilience of Earth's biosphere. Despite the enormity of the destruction, life found a way to rebuild, adapt, and flourish. This resilience set the stage for the rise of humanity as early primates, mammals that would eventually evolve into humans, began their evolutionary journey. The Cenozoic era has since become a time of incredible biological diversity and innovation. From the first tiny mammals scurrying in the shadows of giant dinosaurs, to the emergence of humans as a dominant force, the legacy of the asteroid impact continues to shape the history of life on Earth. It serves as a powerful reminder of life's capacity to endure, adapt, and transform, even in the face of unimaginable catastrophe. The story of the last day of the dinosaurs is more than just a tale of destruction. It is a profound reminder of the fragility and resilience of life on Earth. It illustrates how a single moment in time, a catastrophic collision lasting mere seconds, can alter the trajectory of life forever. The asteroid's impact was not just the end of the dinosaurs, it was the beginning of a new chapter in Earth's history, reshaping the course of evolution and the planet itself. For 160 million years, dinosaurs had been the dominant species, adapting to countless challenges and thriving in a world that seemed perfectly suited to them. They had weathered environmental changes, competition, and predators, yet despite their evolutionary success, they were powerless in the face of a global catastrophe. This serves as a humbling reminder: no species, no matter how dominant, is immune to the forces of nature and the unpredictable events that can transform our world. Today, humanity has something the dinosaurs did not: the ability to understand and anticipate these events. Through the study of fossils, geology, and astronomy, we've pieced together the story of the asteroid that changed everything. We've identified its crater, analyzed the iridium-rich layers it left behind, and traced its impact on the planet's ecosystems. This knowledge allows us to reflect not only on the fragility of life, but also on the interconnectedness of all living things and the delicate balance that sustains our biosphere. The legacy of the dinosaurs lives on, not only in the fossils we uncover but also in the evolutionary paths they shaped. Their extinction cleared the way for mammals to rise, adapt, and eventually thrive, leading to the emergence of humans. Without the asteroid impact, the world as we know it might never have existed. Dinosaurs would likely still roam the Earth, and mammals might have remained small nocturnal creatures, unable to reach their full potential. Their story also offers valuable lessons. It reminds us of the importance of adaptability and resilience in the face of change. The species that survived the asteroid impact, small mammals, birds, and certain marine creatures, did so not because they were the strongest, but because they were able to adapt to the harsh new realities of a post-impact world. This adaptability allowed life to recover, evolve, and flourish once more. As we look back on the extinction of the dinosaurs, we must also look forward. Humanity has become the dominant species on Earth, shaping ecosystems and altering the planet's climate in ways no other species has. But with this dominance comes responsibility. The forces that ended the reign of the dinosaurs, asteroid impacts, climate change, and environmental shifts, still pose threats today. The question is, will we be better prepared to face such challenges, or will we follow a similar path to extinction? Modern science offers us tools to detect potential asteroid impacts, mitigate climate change, and protect biodiversity. Yet, these tools are only as effective as our willingness to use them. The story of the dinosaurs serves as a call to action, a reminder that the choices we make today will determine the future of our planet and all its inhabitants. Ultimately, the tale of the last day of the dinosaurs is not just a story of destruction, but also of survival and resilience. It is a testament to the enduring power of life, which finds a way to adapt and thrive even in the aftermath of unimaginable devastation. The legacy of the dinosaurs lives on in every bird that takes to the skies, every mammal that roams the earth, and every human being who contemplates the mysteries of our past.